What's going on, Dub Nation? You're watching Warriors Today by Chat Sports. My name is Tyler Smith, and on today's show, we're going to be diving into a couple of roster moves that Golden State has made ahead of training camp. They made a couple of Exhibit 10 signings and held a couple of workouts for some NBA vets in hopes of making an NBA roster this season as training camp is fastly approaching. October 1st is when the Dubs head to Hawaii to begin training camp, and then a couple days later, October 5th, preseason begins. So Dubs basketball is so close. We're going to be covering all year long. That's why you subscribe to the channel. When the Warriors make moves, we make videos. We're covering the Golden State Warriors like nobody else on YouTube. This offseason, during the offseason, does not matter. We have our finger on the pulse of your Golden State Warriors, so make sure you are subscribed, youtube.com/WarriorsTV, and we'll get started with today's show. So, a little bit of exposition before we actually dive into who was signed and how they could affect this Warriors roster and if they would even make this Golden State roster at this point. Let's talk about training camp and the schedule the Warriors are on over the next couple of weeks. So Media Day is September 30th. That's going to be held in the Chase Center. And then a very quick turnaround. They'll be flying, basically, once they leave the building, they're hopping on a plane to Hawaii where they'll be doing training camp for 4 days, which, by the way, I mean, if you're just thinking about NFL versus NBA training camp, 3-day training camp is kind of crazy, in my opinion, but that's what the Warriors will be doing at BYU-Hawaii's that athletic center. I'm not going to try to give you all that info, but the preseason opener, like I said, comes on October 5th against the LA Clippers at Hawaii-Manoa. So Golden State has a very quick turnaround from their pictures being taken for Media Day into playing actual real simulated basketball on October 5th. Now, how does training camp work for the NBA? Because we all know 15 roster spots for the regular season, but teams can bring 21 bodies to training camp. So the Warriors, like these past couple of weeks, they've been doing, bringing a couple names on for Exhibit 10 deals to give them essentially tryouts during training camp. But in the Warriors' case, it's very interesting because they actually have 22 names currently signed to contracts. When I looked at Spotrac earlier, I saw 22 names, and I haven't been notified on whether or not anybody has been cut. I haven't seen, a guy like Gui Santos. I don't think he's been cut yet. So the Warriors are going to have to actually trim it down before they actually get to training camp, and then have to trim the roster down even more for the regular season. So let's talk about a couple of the signings that Golden State has made. This one is particularly older, right? We talked about Jackson Rowe way back when. He signed basically directly after Summer League, where it was a strong performance for him, and he spent time with the Santa Cruz Warriors last year in the G League, and he was very solid, actually a really good defensive stopper for the Santa Cruz Warriors, and still putting in 13 points a night, a little below average three-point shooter. Jackson Rowe is not going to be the guy you're going to for all your three-point shooting needs, but a solid 3-and-D wing who crashes the offensive glass and is just one of those guys who is a plug-and-play guy. He's a high-energy, high-effort type of player, and we saw that, as most recent as this Summer League, where he was a little bit more efficient from the field. He was kind of playing that dunker spot, being a very good cutter for the Golden State Summer League roster, and in 7 games, I mean, he was 10-5, like very solid numbers for a guy in Summer League where there's not as much opportunity as, there is in the actual NBA to really stockpile your stats and really fill up that stat sheet. So Jackson Rowe, a name, energy guy, 3-and-D. He's on the Warriors training camp roster. Next up, we have Yuri Collins. Yuri Collins, the grand assist man of college basketball a couple of years ago. He spent his time at St. Louis and was one of the most prolific passers in all of college basketball. Myself, I got to see Yuri Collins play a ton in Atlantic 10 play while he was in college, and he also spent some time with the Santa Cruz Warriors last season. He'll be signed to an Exhibit 10 contract as well. Now, for Golden State, they're really lacking a facilitator, lacking that backup ball handler on the roster. So in my opinion, Yuri Collins doesn't have the least likely chance to be making the Warriors active roster this year. Last year with the Santa Cruz Warriors, he averaged 5 assists a game, and I put up top 24.8 minutes per game. Well, that's interesting because he wasn't playing like full starter level minutes. He was playing 25 minutes a night, putting 5 dimes up. And if you adjust that per 36, he's putting up 8 assists a night, which is crazy for a very inefficient scoring-wise G League. You're not seeing a lot of guys dropping 8 dimes a night. Yuri Collins is one of the most prolific passers in the game. I'm excited to see what he can do in Warriors training camp. I'm excited to see him play in the preseason. Hopefully he doesn't get cut before that. We'll have to wait and see. Next up, Javon Johnson. Javon? I don't know. He played at DePaul in the Big East, and this is just a solid scoring punch. This is a guy who you're going to go and get buckets from at multiple levels of the court. He can put the ball on the deck. He's able to hit the three ball from basically every spot on the floor. And he's a kind of a volume shooter, right? He got up a ton of shots at DePaul. And he also spent time with the Santa Cruz Warriors last season. Honestly, very good from deep range. 38% from three. I'll take that any day of the week. And he showcased his ability to score from multiple levels. Maybe not the best defender, but the Warriors have made signings for these Exhibit 10 deals that have focused on defense. Javon Johnson is more of a guy who's just going to be that microwave scorer that Golden State is looking for. Now, all three of these guys are likely going to end up back with the Santa Cruz Warriors. That's what Exhibit 10 contracts are. They have a G League tie to them. So if you've been seeing a couple of these contracts get signed from different teams over the past couple of weeks, they're signing older players, older veteran guys like a Marcus Morris to the Knicks to these Exhibit 9 deals. Exhibit 10 are for more of the younger players who are just trying to get their foot in the door, trying to keep their basketball career alive, and they have a G League tie to them. So these Exhibit 10 contracts can be converted into two ways and can be converted into standard G League contracts. That's what I think is most likely for these three guys. But if there had to be one guy who stood up above the rest to make this Warriors roster, who would it be? Jackson Rowe, type JR. Yuri Collins, give me a YC. And Javon Johnson, give me a double J down in the comments section. Next, we are going to talk about another Warriors signing, plus some Quinton Post news, because there has been so little this offseason. And we'll dive into a little bit of a Warriors workout as well. But first, I got to give a huge shout out to our sponsor on today's show, and that is Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Prize Picks is offering a sick deal right now for new users. When you sign up and use code CLNS and play a $5 entry, you're going to get $50 instantly. You don't even have to win to receive that $50. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. Unlike other apps on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you got to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Football season is here, and every week in September, Prize Picks is giving you a free win. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you one win on Prize Picks. That's right. 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. Don't miss this deal on Prize Picks because it's gone when September ends. But Prize Picks also has season-long basketball projections as well, and that's where we're headed today. Stephen Curry, my guy. He's going to shoulder a lot of weight for this Warriors roster this season, so give me the more on his 26.5 point per game averages. Zachary Rijache, the #1 pick in the draft. Give me the less on 10.3 points per game this season. I think it was a bit of a reach by Atlanta to go out there and take Riza Shea. I'm not a big fan of the pick. Give me the less there. And then Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for the OKC Thunder. He gets to the line a ton. He's going to still shoulder a ton of offensive weight for the OKC Thunder. And he was more than this number this year. So give me the more than 30.6 points per game. You can fade my picks. You can tail my picks. Just make sure you go do it at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code CLNS on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game. So the Warriors made another Exhibit 10 signing. This one's coming in the form of Donta Scott. Now, Scott is a guy who, playing with the Maryland Terrapins for the last 5 seasons, he's been around the block, but hasn't yet played in professional action. Now, if we look at what he did with Maryland this past season, he was a 2-time Big Ten honorable mention. So a guy who was constantly performing at a high level with the Maryland Terrapins, and he was an energy guy. I mean, he could hit the outside shot, but he would also be keen on crashing the offensive glass. He'd be able to get to the rack. He was kind of a 5-tool player, not necessarily somebody who's going to fill up the stat sheet in facilitation-wise. He's an off-ball guy. He likes to run off screens and be able to catch and shoot 3-point attempts. Not super efficient, but he was doing it at a high volume for the Maryland Terrapins. Now, he will likely join the other 3 signings that I've talked about previously in Santa Cruz. That's why they're handing out these Exhibit 10 contracts, like I said before. But another guy who's going to give you high energy on both ends of the floor. Now, this one nugget for Golden State is very interesting. Quinton Post, the Warriors' number 52 overall draft pick. They traded back into the draft to get this guy, yet he's still unsigned. Why is that? Where is Quinton Post? Why have they not given him a standard contract yet? Why have they not even given him a 2-way contract yet? It's very, very interesting. I mean, this is a guy who could transform this Warriors roster and could provide real rotation ability. He's 7 foot tall. he has the ability to stretch the floor. Now, he's not the best defender, but for a Warriors team that really lacks size, I mean, there isn't even a player above 6'9" on the roster. This is a true 7-footer who is a rim protector and can stretch the floor and grab rebounds. Like, why are we just fumbling over ourselves here, not getting Quinton Post on the roster? Well, there could be some reasoning to that. I mean, he didn't play a ton this past summer. He was hurt. He had an injury. And the Warriors front office, they've said that they were concerned with his ability on the defensive floor to be playing in space, to be, a screen and roll defender. So maybe that's the reason that they haven't been super keen to making a signing yet, making an official signing. But I want to hear from you guys first before we talk more about Quinton Post. Will he be a part of the Golden State Warriors rotation this year? Let me know down in the comments by typing Y for yes or typing N for no. Now, with Quinton Post, it's a weird scenario, right? Because like I said before, he had the injury, he had the big foot injury when he was drafted, and then, like I said, the Warriors front office had concerns over his defense. So for a Steve Kerr team, for a coach that prides himself on good team defense, Quinton Post is going to need to improve in that regard. So that's maybe the reason he hasn't been signed yet, but there is a way that he can find his way on this roster. Like I said before, the Warriors have 22 names on the roster, but Quinton Post is likely going to join the team. They're not going to just draft a guy to not have him on the roster all year long. The most likely scenario for Quinton Post is that he ends up taking Reese Beekman's two-way contract. Reese Beekman, he didn't perform a ton in the Summer League this year because he fell victim to an injury as well. So it's an unfortunate situation for a guy who's got to get cut, who thought he might find himself on the roster earlier. But in my opinion, for the Warriors team that's lacking size, you can't just keep loading up on guards. You have to have Quinton Post in the building in some capacity. Now, finally, before we wrap up today's show, a workout came for Golden State, and that came in the form of Nassir Little. Now, Nassir Little has been taking workouts with other teams as well, including the Sacramento Kings, the Miami Heat, and the Boston Celtics. And he's very young still. He's played 5 years in the NBA, but I don't even think he's 25 yet. That's the crazy thing about Nassir Little. But is he really going to be making an impact on this Warriors team? I don't really think so. He's a good 3-and-D player, but kind of lacks in the 3 department. I mean, very inconsistent from long range throughout his career, 35 4 years ago, but up to 30, down to 30 last year, even though he was at 37 the year before. Back in 2020, 2021, he earned himself a 4-year, $28 million contract, and he wasn't even able to fulfill that entire contract. The Phoenix Suns waived him on August 27th after he just wasn't a piece of their rotation. And to be quite honest with you, man, Nassir Little doesn't move me. He's not going to be a guy who I'm depending on to make this Warriors roster. And if he doesn't, I'm not going to be crying over spilled milk. Nassir Little, is a reason that you're trying to continue your NBA career. There's a reason that you're looking at a spot where you got your contract voided. You were waived when you were on a $7 million deal. That's like borderline impossible in today's NBA. And somehow you were just thrown by the wayside, and now you're just trying to scrape for crap. Like you're grabbing for scraps now and trying to find your way back onto an NBA roster. It just doesn't seem like a good look entirely for me as far as a Nassir Little goes. But like I said, if Nassir Little does end up joining the Warriors, we will have a video for you right here at the channel. Like I said, when the Warriors make moves, we make content right here at Warriors Today by Chat Sports. Stick with us, youtube.com/WarriorsTV. We'll be covering all of Warriors training camp, all the preseason, and then full throttle coverage all season long. You're going to want to stick with us. We'll see you in the next one. Let's go Dubs.